I could make this video and then change my mind 5 minutes later and my nub's gone. Well, I absolutely love my 15V Shaman. There are a few things that keep it from living in my pocket. One is stiff action. If I just pinch this down, it will not. You have to kick it down. And the second thing is, I don't like weight on a knife just because. So this stainless steel, or whatever it is, I assume it's stainless, backspacer here has always bothered me. And I knew I should have ordered the kit from Rip's Garage Tech when I ordered the scales. I don't know why I didn't, but here we are about a year later. We're gonna see if we can fix both of those issues. I have a standoff kit in here, so we can take out this chunky backspacer. I want to weigh the knife and see what kind of weight that we're gonna lose, because it's a big heavy knife and I expected that, and it's not too heavy, but at the same time, it's got a lot of extra handle weight for no reason, which when you're in the choil, this thing will fall out of your hands. It's so heavy in the rear. Now, if you come up under here, it's a little better, but even back here, it's still very handle heavy. So we're gonna take some of that out with some titanium standoff kit. Also, I ordered the one with a titanium stop pin. Now, in theory, you know, woo, we all love titanium. I don't think this is a smart move to go from a hardened stainless steel pin that's been hardened by Spyderco, who spent the money on research, to replace it with titanium that is softer, that can't be hardened like that. So I'm gonna keep an eye on my lockup. The only reason I really wanted to try this new stop pin is because of the stiff action here. I'm hoping that maybe this one is made, we're gonna put a mic on it, and hopefully it has a little more space in that barrel. This is a milled stop pin that floats, so it's not screwed down at all. It just goes smaller on the ends. We'll see it when we get there. But anyways, let's take this thing apart. Let's polish the washers. Let's see if we can get this action better. And let's also put this thing on a diet. It is sitting at 5.04. There's our standoffs and the new pin. We'll take the clip out with a T6. I like to set the clips aside with the screws in them so we know exactly what went where. We're gonna try to break this pivot free first. That is a T10. All right, so that's broke free, so I'm gonna screw it back down. That way it's tight. I know this one's easy to break free. We will go on the opposite side and make sure this one's broke free. Yep, that's broke free. We're gonna break that free and then break this one free. That's a quick little trick right there. If you ever have trouble with Loctite, usually that will work. We're gonna do the same thing for the back. We're gonna use T8s. Break your screws free first to make sure you're not gonna have any problem childs, and the knife will come apart fairly easy. All right, so what I like to do from here is take off whatever side does not have the locking side. So on a compression lock, obviously, we're looking, you know, not like a frame lock. It's on the show side. So we're gonna take off the back side here. So we've already broke our screws free. This should be smooth sailing. And it doesn't matter, I like to keep constant tension down. That way the knife doesn't get too wonky. What I'm saying is the knife doesn't even know it's unscrewed right now, right? And then when I do this, I like to pop the blade, not locked, but not closed either. That way if something goes funny, it's not gonna scratch the blade. But again, keeping tension down. Once I have that loose, we will see if we can let go. All right. And then we will rock the knife scale off. Maybe I didn't pop the rear out enough. Yep, so there it goes. All right, so here we are with our floating stop pin there. You can see the milling, and you can see this big chunky backspacer. I suspect we're gonna lighten this thing up quite a bit when we put on the standoffs. So we could do that now. This really doesn't need to be a huge operation. Maybe polishing this blade is going to be. I also suspect that possibly these washers are just a little bit thick. So when we polish them down, hopefully that'll give it some action. And then also this compression lock seemed really bent over, but I will not adjust locks. To me, if the company spent all the design and research and they build knives for a living, they know what specs this lock bar needs to be at to test at the pressures. And especially a very reputable company like Spyderco, I'm not gonna mess with lock tensions. I think it's not responsible for anybody who tells you that you can adjust bars in or out to do detents or actions. Just in my opinion, you should be bending steel or titanium with heat, and you shouldn't just be doing it cold. So we're not going to be doing any of that adjustment. So let's pull out this pin here, and I wanted to put a mic on it. So this is what I'm concerned with. We got 2.6.5. Let's get another measurement somewhere over here. Oh, very precise there. I spun the whole thing. 2.65. We can spin it a little more. 2.65. So again, I don't think it's smart to make this move, and I'm not recommending it, but I'm willing to try it. Titanium's not that soft, but it's definitely not like a heat-treated stainless steel. Wow. So they nailed that exactly at Rips Garage Tech. Let's see a width here. 1.87, spin it, 1.87. I would assume it's done on a lathe. That should be right. It's good to know that stuff before you put the build together. So this is an exact replica of Spyderco's. And let's go ahead and loosely fit. And I say loosely, you don't ever want to crank down a knife without getting the whole thing kind of together, and then you start snugging stuff down. Let's get rid of this big fatty right here for no reason. I mean, that's a chunk of steel there. I'm gonna try to spin these on to get it started. All right. I suspect that's gonna take quite a bit of weight off of the back of this thing. So we're gonna polish these washers. You can actually see it looks like it's wearing around the outside edge. So maybe there was a burr on these washers and it's really not creating the action that we want. That one looks a little polished, but again, I would expect the wear to be a little more even. So we're gonna flatten these washers, and how we're gonna do that is I have my ceramic ultrafine Spyderco stone. You could use any stone, just make sure it's a flat surface. And I have a couple different wet and dry sandpapers here. So we have a 600, we'll start there. Just a few circles on both sides. 600 is gonna remove a lot of brass or whatever these are. We're gonna go to 1,000, and then we will go to 2,000, and then we will put them on the ceramic stone itself. Just wanna make sure it's on a flat surface. And this is not a fun process. I'm gonna clean them off first with some goof off. Could use anything. Get a little lick on your finger so it would have something to stick to. And then we're gonna do a few circles. Flip it over, do a few circles. Again, the action being a little tight, sometimes these compression locks, they do need to have the washer thinned out just a little bit if you wanna free that action up. Again, you don't wanna overdo it. 600 is not a high grit sandpaper. You're not in any real danger there, but I wouldn't want to do much more than that, or at least start there, because you can always take a little more off, but you can add it back, right? Let's go ahead and get a new portion of our 600. Give your finger another little lick there. Flat surface. I wouldn't even suggest like a countertop. Get you a sharpening stone, something that you know is flat. And to me, I can't think of anything flatter than my ceramic sharpening stone. And just do a couple circles, a couple little happy circles. Hopefully we don't remove a little bit too much happy bronze phosphorus. So now we're gonna go to that 1,000 grit. Same thing. It's gonna take a second here. We're just looking to remove the 600 grit scratches. 1,000 should start to polish it. My dad's in the body shop business, and he told me if you want to be efficient when you're working on anything, whether it's for you, for the house, for a customer, it's expensive, but use sandpaper like it's free. Some people really try to drag out the sandpaper. Now, wet dry, I could probably rinse this off and get another couple washers out of it. But what I'm saying is I use this spot. Once I see it starting to load up, move to a different spot. We're done with the 1,000 grit. I'm gonna go ahead and wash these off so we're not contaminating our 2,000 grit. Starting that polishing process, you don't want extra dirt in there and gunk if you don't need it. Again, it's not that big of a deal. They're just washers. We're not changing the world here. But if you can help it, it doesn't take long to rinse them out. So let's start this 2,000 grit. You could get crazy here and just spend an hour rubbing these things, but I'm also afraid to take too much material off because we are removing some material, which is kind of what we want to free up the action. Because I know even with this spacer in here, in between the pivot and the sandwich construction there, if you crank down the pivot, it was still too tight, which means these washers need breaking in, right? They need breaking in, which means just a lot of use, possibly years of use, or you could speed that break-in process up by just polishing them. This whole process, if I wasn't filming it, takes like 3 minutes if you have all the stuff on hand. You can find most of these sandpapers, I believe, even at somewhere like Walmart, in the automotive section. Don't look in the home improvement section. You're gonna look in the automotive paint section. And like with the spray paints and stuff like that is usually where you'll find them. So again, coming off this 2,000, it's not gonna be quite like a mirror, and that's not really what I'm looking for. They'll mirror on their own over time as you really do break it in, but this is certainly way better than what it was. So I'm just cleaning off these after the 2,000 grit, and then we will start to do some final polishing. Again, they don't have to be perfect. This is just gonna be better than what the factory shipped with, and also gives us a reference point for in the future when we take the knife down after carrying it for a little bit. We will be able to see if the wear patterns are a little more even. That's the back look. Oh, that's brand new. Yep, we will do the rough cut on this, and then we'll flip it and do the final on that. So I'm spinning it in my finger here a little more than I did on the sandpaper, trying to get the very edges, and we should see she's starting to come around. It's not polished all the way to the edge there, so I don't know if it's because I'm pushing on there or whatever, but we'll see. This may not even fix the action. The Spyderco may have designed the Shaman to have stiffer action like that. The only thing that I don't think that is the reason, I think mine's just off, is because I've seen other ones be drop shut. Maybe not as smooth as like a Para 2, but definitely more smooth than mine. Mine is pretty rough. So let's get an update on this. That looks like a piece of dirt or something there. Flip her over. Got a brand new surface to work on. This will be close to our final polish. And then I have an old strop that I'm just gonna do a couple passes on. It can be hard to polish up washers on a strop because it will ruin your strop. You need an old one that you're not using anymore to polish up your washers. So when you see my strop, don't think I'm actually using that on my knives anymore. I did at one time, but all right, I'd say we're getting there. We're gonna switch over to the strop. This sucker is beat now. I've strop serrations and everything on it, but it should still give us a little bit of a polish. Never throw away your old strops. You can always find a use for them. I probably could even resurface this if I sanded it down and then just reload it. Again, I'm not gonna get super crazy. This is my knife. I'm just looking for something a little bit better. I could even live with the action how it was, but if I could make it better, let's go ahead and do that. But I was mostly ordering this kit for those rear spacers, and then I just want to try out that titanium stop pin too, almost for my own research. You know, so how much does titanium dent up and stuff. Like, how much abuse does a stop pin actually take? So I'm definitely keeping my stainless hardened one, because that would be the better choice in my opinion. I don't know why you'd ever want titanium over stainless steel in practicality, you know, like if you're not just doing it to be cool. All right, so we're gonna clean these up. We're gonna clean the knife up and we're gonna reassemble and see if that fixed everything. I like to work on white paper towels. That way I can see if any dirt, contamination, screws pop on there. So this is my dirty towel, right? So before we assemble, I already know that's brand new. We're gonna clean this stuff up and we're gonna move it to the clean towel, and then we will assemble on the clean towel. So again, you can use anything. Usually I use like lighter fluid, but goof off's fine here. Being that it's my own knife, I'm not gonna get super crazy. I'm trying to wrap around this compression lock and just make sure everything's clean in there. Might as well go ahead and wipe out the inside of the knife. Get a look at that detent. And you can see how kicked over this thing is. And a lot of that might be in the tension alone is causing that detent ball dragging on the blade, is giving it that stiff action. But I don't think that's true, because when I pinch this all the way closed and I even loosen up the pivot, it still doesn't have nice and smooth action. So I think there's something else going sideways in here or something. So again, we're gonna wrap all the way up and around on the locking surfaces. I wonder why they have those extra holes there. That seems like a weak spot. Is that for milling, maybe? Why would they do that? So the detent does not go all the way through, but these other two holes do. The only reason I could think for that is maybe that's how they mill it. It just seems strange. So going back to my reviews, how I used to really break down the details, I haven't had a chance to show you guys something like this in a while. So do you notice how they don't just cut it square and square out? Everything's done in a circle or a half circle. Even this right here is not a straight cut. Those can be shear points. So a rounded is better than a 90. I don't know if that makes sense. This is stronger because it's a circle. And clean up that lock face just a little bit more. You can see they actually have a ramp leading up to the blade for the detent. And I'm gonna make sure that this thing is cleaned inside here. And then I was using a little bit of a thicker lube that I've been using for years on this. We're gonna try some knife and pivot lube and see if that will help. A little KPL in there. You see my old Loctite. I like to use blue Loctite, and I'm definitely not scared if it has a D-shaped pivot like this. Right there. Flat, so that locks it in. So you go to take the screws off of either side, it's locked in by that liner and doesn't spin. And also over time it doesn't spin, so you sometimes don't need Loctite, but on a pivot, I like Loctite. I've been stuck too far away from home on a job, and all of a sudden your pivot's loose. And for some reason you don't have a T10 or a T8. I've ran into some stores and picked up what I needed, or a quick little cheap set or something to make an adjustment on a knife before, but I'd rather not have to do that. Move it to the clean towel. Give her a little once over there. All right, so we will be reusing these screws again. We will move the dirty towel away. I don't want to lose these, so I'm going to slide those. And when I open the box, look, cut my little Ziploc baggie. Have you ever cut the item that you was trying to get? Opening it. Do not open with knives. Us opens with knives. Us. cuts the exact item that we ordered. Us. Sad we didn't listen to do not open with knife. All right, so we got her on a diet. We got our KPL, and we have that. We'll go ahead and rip a little piece of our paper. You'll see why. That's to put the Loctite on to dip it in. So let's get this thing back together. I guess we're gonna go with this side because I've already put that on there. I should have thought a little better. I would have rather it been on that side. That's okay. We're gonna put this floating pin in. Just see if there's any wiggle room in there. That really might be the reason for the action. I might do all of this and it's still the exact same, but at least it'll be lighter. You know what? I'm mistaken. We have to do the side with the D. It's that D shape right there. You have to do that side first with these Spydercos. And it's only D on one side. Just making sure all this is cleared out from there. Any old Loctite or anything that gunk that got in there. Again, I'm trying to give this the best scenario possible to have clean, smooth action. All right, so we have to do the D side. That's fine. Once we build it over here, it should transfer over. Should be fine. Famous last words. So now what I have to do is figure out what side of these washers I want facing towards the blade. Really doesn't matter because we resurfaced them. This side looks a little more shiny, but could just be me. And we're looking for the D flat to go on that bottom flat. I don't know if you can see it. First, we got to pinch the washer here. And we could, you really don't need to oil the liner on these knives because the washer really only slides on the blade. But let's just do it because it's not gonna hurt it. We'll put a little drop there. And I mean, just little. D side is facing down. And that should lock in. There, she's locked in. I can't spin it. We're on the D side. It's all the way flat. We're not gonna pinch a washer. Again, I'm not looking to gorilla tighten this thing. Just like hand snugging it. Like a finger, when it starts to get tight, I'm gonna let it be. I don't need to tighten it. Now, let's make sure this blade is nice. What we're going to do is put a little drop of this KPL. I mean, a little goes a long way. And then we're also gonna put a little on the actual surface that the blade is gonna rotate on. Okay? So we've got it on the washer and a little on the barrel. Make sure this is nice and clean. Put it in there. That feels really smooth. Cycle it a few times just to make sure it's evenly distributed or has a good shot to be. Now we're gonna go ahead and figure out what side of this washer we want. I think that side's a little more shiny, so we're gonna put that towards the blade. Put a little bit more. That's probably way too much, but it'll be fine. Again, I would like to spin this just a little bit, distribute it around. We're gonna do another drop there. Again, we really don't have to do this part because when it touches this liner, it shouldn't really spin going towards the liner. Does that make sense? But it doesn't hurt either. And also what I'm gonna do is take the tiniest drop, the drop that's already hanging off there, and just touch this detent. So we got a little on that detent. And then we're gonna put this in here and put this in here. We're gonna have a little bit of resistance because that liner is trying to push. And then what we're gonna do is not have the blade locked open and we're not gonna have it all the way closed. So that went right there on top. We're locked in. We're gonna go ahead and hand tighten this top 10, this T10. Make sure you're not cross-threaded. Again, just barely tight right there. Again, now we can hand snug this. Let's see. Blade's looking centered. Fairly centered. If you want to pull it to this side, what you do is you skew the scales. You push down on the top, pull up on this side. That will make this pivot go just a little sideways, and it'll walk that blade over, and it doesn't take much. You can also hold the blade a little to the other side. Tighten down that rear, and then we will snug up this. Before we put Loctite and stuff, I might have to take this back apart. Oh man, that's a lot better. Look at this. Okay, could go a little more tension. We're there. Part of me wants to go a little looser. Part of me wants to leave it just like that and just let her break in, because it is a lot better. It wasn't doing that before. Blade center feels a lot lighter. This is a lot better. Yep, I'm not doing any more than this. So now what I do once I have the knife tuned, right, and I know it can go center, now what we'll do, we have not put any Loctite in here at all. We will take one screw off at a time, put Loctite on it, and then re-screw that screw back down. So we'll start with the T10. And I've got everything adjusted. Like, you could just put this in your pocket, but I like the extra assurance on the pivot. I really don't put it on the back spacer. I just don't feel like I need to. And really on a Spyderco with the D captured pivot, you really don't need to. But again, why not? So as I do, I like to kick the blade open. It's just how I like to do things. Take off one screw. This is where our little piece of paper comes in. And I put a little drip on there. And then what I do, got your clean napkin here. Put this like this, right here. Right, so just the tips poking out. Get you a little on there. And then I do a dot on there. That takes it off the top of there so it's not dripping. And then we go ahead and put it into here. For your final assembly, I like to spin it backwards until it clicks into place and then go back forwards. What that does is make sure you're not going to cross thread that screw. Again, just hand snugging it. We're going to make sure blade's still centered. That's snugged down with Loctite. Flip it over, kick the blade, loosen it. Same thing. Take it on the tip of your finger. Get you a little on there. It's domed off the top right now. Do your dot. That way it keeps it on just the threads. Put it in there. Backward spin. Clicks into threads. And then forwards. That makes sure that you're not going to cross thread it. Now we adjust it just like we did before. I could go a little more. And then we're going to put the clip on there. Man, that was not doing that before. Taking the tension off that comp block. We got some swinging action, boys. I'm going to give it just a little tiny twist. We're still swinging. Tighten up the backside. I always like to go where it's not swinging and then go off just a little bit. Found that point. That's a little too much. That way we know it's as snug as it can be. Also, when you freshly assemble a knife, keep an eye on it for a day or two after you carry it, because these stop pins and everything can settle and move around, and you might have a little bit of loose action or whatever, and then you have to, you know, tighten her up with just a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead, because I'm absolutely a crazy person, and make sure that my rear standoffs are all snug. Again, you don't need to gorilla tighten down things like that. Just as long as they're snug with a little bit of, okay. Don't keep full fist on there. Again, I like Weehaw bits, but they can still bend on you and they still need to be replaced. I think I'm gonna carry this knife a lot more now. Also, it feels so much more balanced. Looks a little basic in the back there, but I like it. Let's go ahead and put the clip on. And while I have it here, it's not gonna hurt to do the same thing with these screws. What I mean by do the same thing is just put a little bit of Loctite on there. Easier to put the screws in like this. Get you some Loctite on there, both of them. Do your dab. Put it where you want it. Same thing. This is a T6. Spin it backwards. When it clicks, you should be ready to go forwards. Barely snug on that. You can also adjust the clip. Click, now back forward. Now, these are both hand barely tight. So now I can kind of swing this where I want it. I want it in the center of the scale there. So I'm gonna hold it there, and I'm gonna finish snugging these up. Looks like it still went a little to that side. Sometimes the clips can walk this way because you're tightening the screw to the right. So when this spins, it pushes it just a little bit. There we go. Yes, I'm a crazy person, and I know you know how that feels. So we've got some Loctite here, Loctite here. I really don't feel the need to Loctite these back down. If you did want to, put you another little drop of your blue Loctite. Do not use red. Sometimes the blue comes in a red container, but make sure the words on it say blue Loctite. You could pull one of these screws out, dip it in there, hit the dot, put it in. One out, dot, hit the back, one out, and then make sure that your knife is still exactly how you wanted it. We fixed it. Wow. Now I might have to do a nub delete. What do you think? Because now the action is so smooth, it comes around and that nub is hitting my finger. It's always something. I could never do that before though. Wow, incredible. Let's see how light it is now. It feels way more balanced in my hand. We were at 4.69. So it took out a couple ounces. Probably nothing to really get all up in the air about, but in my opinion, it was worth it. So let's just see what this backspacer alone weighed, because that's what we lost. And then we put in some tiny, tiny titanium standoffs in there. There's that big chunk of steel. So this alone weighs 0.32. So my guess is that's about how much we lost off of the knife, because those are probably barely anything right there. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Let me know if you like this video. It took a ton of time to edit it down into something that's actually watchable. And I think I'm going to keep this knife now. We're going to carry and use it. I still haven't had to sharpen it, but I'm going to, just because I want to put my own edge on there. And it's going to be a little bit of a chore because I have to recut some of this. I'm going to sharpen it up all the way to the base there. And maybe I'll do a nub delete, grind that off to make that flat. Although I don't know, I'm kind of torn on it because the nub is how Spyderco wanted it. And this being a hard use knife does provide just a little bit of extra wrap around your finger. security versus no nub. So do I want flickability and fidget ability, or do I want to keep it as much of a tool as possible? I don't know if I've already crossed that line by putting skinnies on it, because really it should have the little swell there. And it's not like a nub makes it not a tool, or a tool, just kind of preference. But I think for ultimate safety, I might keep that nub on there. Although I have seen them with no nub, and they do look nice and sleek. So we'll see. We'll see. I changed my mind. I could make this video and then change my mind 5 minutes later and my nub's gone. And that's a nub joke. All right, guys. I appreciate you hanging out. Let me know what you think. We can do more videos like this where we just tune knives, or maybe even do it live. There's a lot of boring parts and it takes a long time to cut down, but I'm willing. If that's what we want to do, just show me with a thumbs up and a comment what you want. Appreciate you. See ya.